All right, let's start a little bit more pragmatic, but we'll branch out. So, one of the things I think a lot of folks here are interested in is based off the APIs that very large models will create. What are the real business? Like, what are the ways to forward? And then, how, given that the APIs will be available to multiple, how do you create distinctive?
So I think so far we've been do like an incredible copyright, do like a sort of, but I don't think we've yet seen people go after it. And I think that's about to happen. Like maybe it'll be, but like I would guess that quality, there will be like a serious, and I think to really think about like how did this change, and that's going to be really powerful. I think that like a human level chat bot interface that actually works this time around. I think many of these trends that like we all made fun of were just too early. Like the chatbot thing was good. It was now it can work, and having like new medical services that are done through that where you get great advice or new services. These are going to be very nice. I think we'll get multimodal models in not that much longer, and that'll open up new things. I think people are doing out of agents that can and this idea of like a language interface. Where you say in natural language what you want in this kind of like dialogue back and forth. You can iterate and refine it, and it just does it for you. You see some of this with like Dall E and Copilot in very early ways, but I think this is going to be a massive trend and very large. It's just the interface, and more generally that like these very powerful models will one of the genuine platforms which we haven't really had, and there's always like an explosion right after. So that'll be cool.
Are given that the large language providers, what are the AI think about is how do you differentiate?
Yeah. So I think there will be a small handful of like fundamental large models out there that build on. But right now, what happened is language model, API, other people on top of it. And I think there will be a middle layer where I'm like skeptical, but what I think will happen is there will be whole reps that take an existing and tune it, which is not just like all of the things. There will be a lot of access provided to create the model for medicine, and then those companies will create a lot of them because they will like a special. They won't have to have created the base model, but they will have created something they can use just for themselves or share with others that has this unique all of that. So I think there will be a lot of that created in the middle layer.
And what do you a bit like, for example, surprise a couple of years ago, we talked to Kevin Scott about Opened Up, which train on the do code. Right? So what do you think some of the surprises of you didn't realize it reached?
I think the biggest like systemic mistake making right now, like, all right, maybe I was going to work and sure, but it's not going to new knowledge. It's just going to like look done. And, that's still great. That's still like, but it's not going to go like create, it's not going to add. And that is what I think.
So let's go to science. What are some use of AIs by scientists? What are some accelerate?
Yeah. So I think there's two things happening now and then a bigger third. One is there are these science dedicated, whatever, like alpha to value, and seeing way more. I would be so extra anyway, but there's like another thing that's all that help us a bunch of our code, and that impact like outside of the obvious. I'm just seeing now, like from that, that will be a significant change. But then, so those are the two that I think are now, and the big that I think are starting. I has more scary, but like AI that can like an AI science, and we automate jobs that help us. That on the scary version from the science is like editing optimization. But there's a less scary to go off. Whatever AI to do that, I'm very excited. Like I'm a big believer. Only real drive in progress is the structure, the societal structure of the big progress, and like I make a lot more.
Well, especially science. Say a little bit about what probably 4 sentences.
Yeah. So the alignment problem is like we're gonna make it really bad if it doesn't what we want there, or goals where it just. And so the alignment problem is how do we AGI that what is humanity? How do we make it humanity? And how do we accidental misuse, bad create harm, and then the kind of like inner element problems. The way that I think improving system necessarily by the of self-improving, but like we have some ideas about how to solve the problem at all scale. AI's biggest better than. We have some ideas about what to do, but we cannot honestly lie and say we see out 100. But once the AI is to like, hey, I think that's gonna
like I had is could we tell the agent don't be racist, right? And
yeah.
As opposed to trying to figure out all weird correlates, all the trainings that lead to racist outcomes, it could actually in fact do a self-cleanse.
Totally. Once the
what do you think are kind of
in terms of like evolution of where AI will go? I'll start with like I think which models, and I think it's like what a lot of people. That's all true. Another thing is we'll get, but I think we'll have models that. So very excited about all of that. Just think that alone with that. That would be that we're all that. But I think we're likely, and I think there will be.
So one thing I think would be useful to share because folks don't fairly. We can take that a little bit about some of the areas of AI and.
Oh yeah. So I like one of AI has. but historically that's like everybody. So like a lot of the figured out. I think it is just to say is now I'll say I many things. But I think it's like we like to make predictions where we understand what the sign laws look like or already and make predictions from that way, and that's sort of which has like I feel bad to say this, like I doubt we'll still or not, I hope, but so I think it's important to I think like that's the way to pay attention, and then of course for like the
So I'm going to ask you to put it up, a broader discussion. Paint the broad picture, the crazy ass
Great.
question. What do you think is going to happen? The application for a natural high frequency trading system. What arms? How you thought and like it's almost like the life throw.
Yeah.
Omegas.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is going to just seep everywhere. My basic next decade cost the marginal cost and rapidly like and those and I think you have to size so I wouldn't like make a prediction of a lot, but one of that's not like either all the way, and so it's like someone will just get like they'll just get to do that, and where's it going to get the weirdest? Not because up
the intersection of the two curves.
Yeah, the thing got 10 or 100, thing got 100, and I was still $.
And then last, the buzzword bingo part of the future metaverse. What do you see?
I think they're like both, and it's not like other than like how AI will.
Well, obviously, computing environments, agent, possibly, those would be baseline.
I would bet that the metaverse turns out in the upside. The upside case, the maintainer, and AI turns something, and so I think it's more AI than AI. But
all right, question.
How do you see technologies affecting the pace of life science research specifically, and sort of just cycle? What do you see as true?
Yeah. So I think that available models kind of not good. There's been some stuff on it. I think that's going to those areas are, but like when you can make as you mentioned, there will be like the trials. Where can you avoid that? Like the synthetic biochem, and that benefits like an AI. The things are right now. I'm a huge and so I think the other thing this if I were
will help make
people are working on now very smart.
And I can keep going on question. Here.
I was curious, what aspects of do you think won't be
Sort of all of the deep biologics like drive. So I think the stuff that 2,000 years ago more likely.
The amplify or the
good question. Star Trek is pretty good on it. Like I do like all of like it's not this. I think the last quite came to mind.
Yep. I was expecting Ian Banks.
Those are great.
Okay.
I think science fiction is like there's not like but like the collective optimism of sci-fi, which actually I took a few days off just about sort of like the optimism that it made me think. Great.
I might be more optimistic than that, but yes. I mean, this ascension into the overworld is meant to be utopian. You may not read it that way, but yes.
Other than how do we?
Of everyone having 10 kids?
Yeah. How do you?
This is like there are people I always thought of. I think like as I get the EA can gonna die. I don't know, like it's gonna be so wonderful freedom. But I think I think having a lot of kids.
What do you think will be the way that most users interact with foundation models in 5 years? Do you think there'll be a number of verticalized AI startups have adapted and fine-tuned foundation industry, or do you think prompt and have as an in-house function?
I don't think so. I think and this will be integrated just like either with text that will go off and doing, or just. But I think the fundamental.
Just like we have and take Dall E, you have like I know how to think more. So it isn't that while it be
100%. I just hope it's not like figure out how to like how by adding everything else. I like what will matter is like the artist will still, but not because they were just
they have as an and kind of how their visual obviously their prompt. Now. All right.
Thanks so much. I think the term AGI is thrown around a lot, and sometimes I've my own sources of confusion come from definition of AGI. The magic button projects their ideas onto it, and I just want to get a sense from you. How do you think? How would you define AGI, and how do you?
I should have defined that earlier. I think there's like a lot of valid. AGI is equivalent, which includes like learning how to be a doctor. There's a lot of, and I think one of this is not any. So for me, like that's. And then super.
Thanks. Just, what would you say are in the next 20, 30 years are some of the main societal issues arise as AI can, and what can we do today to?
Obviously, the economic impact, like if it is as divergent, like there's not, and so figuring out, and even if it's not all disrupted by 20, what is like how to? My guess are how we think about fairly evening wealth, access to AGI will be like and decide. And I think figuring out I'm optimistic to figure out how to spend it. I'm sure. But I do think like the wealth, how.
Actually, one thing, Devs, you can share that. They think about these questions. I'll opt them and they initiate some. So you've researched on this.
Yeah. So we run the largest UBI. I think that is a year and a quarter left. And I don't think that's like the we try. to get sort of from a lot of the we've explored how
They are. These are great questions addressing that.
Hi, yeah. Really came up to me that creators allow creators.
Yeah. I think we're seeing this now that is love it, and at least in what so far, not but want to be doing, and I think we'll see that eventually. Yeah, a productive job. I think it's if you asked about how AI was going with a lot of most people, you would have first it's blue collar jobs in the factory, then it will kind of like the white collar jobs, then the very high skill, really high white collar jobs like or whatever, and very last of all, and it's really gone into this reminder and generally about how options are. But more specifically about, we're not always in ourselves or hard any.
Thanks for being here. So you mentioned that you would be skeptical and startup to train to understand. So what I have heard and which might is that large language data and any startup can access to the same amount. It's just like and compete to the same amount. So how large language model startup differentiate?
How would the startup differ from another?
One large language model startup.
I think it'll be this middle layer. I think in some sense the startups their own models just they will take base models that are and then they will on top of create the model for and that those startups so in some sense they are training their own models from scratch, but they're doing those startups. I think there will be startups there, but that'll be about the data flywheel all of and below base model. I think that's just going to get
Sam probably going to fire. Sam always a little bit unlike when you're feeling depressed, where it's kids and you're the person I always turn to for optimism.
I appreciate that.
Yes. So anyway,
I think like no one knows, like we're sitting on this like premise of AI, really great. You may as well you gotta like plan for the worst. You say it's all gonna, but you may as well like emotionally we're gonna get to the great future and work hard to get there and play for it rather than like act.
If we acted, we would not be. So let's thank Sam for spending dinner with us.
Thank you.